Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sports Psych Show. Thanks so much for joining me. Now, today I'm really excited to be speaking with Amy Williams. Amy, welcome to the Sports Psych Show.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Cheers.
Really looking forward to speaking. Why don't we get started by getting you to introduce yourself to the Sports Psych Show audience?
Well, hello, everyone. So I'm Amy Williams. I won an Olympic gold medal in the sport of skeleton, winter sport, in the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver. Since then, I'm a mum to two boys, set up my own personal training business, and have most recently just written a book, actually, which I know we will eventually talk about. But yeah, busy life here.
Well, look, it's that book that we're here to talk about today, Talent to Triumph. So really excited to go through that with you. Being an absolute geek of sporting performance as I am, having been a competitor, a coach, and now a sports psych for the last 15 years. As we go through this book, I'm really keen, Amy, to sort of discuss, well, parallel it, I suppose, with the challenges that you've had in your career and the triumphs you've had in your career. I watched your gold medal winning performance a decade ago, just over a decade ago. So cool to be chatting with you. And what I hadn't realised is that actually you started out life as a runner. Is that right? And I'm just fascinated with that. So please sort of tell me a little bit about that and how on earth you then transitioned to a sport like skeleton.
Yeah, I know. It's a random one and everyone's always like, what? Like, we don't have a track here. So yeah, I think for me, I had a background of running, athletics. That was my kind of thing, the sporty kid at school. But yeah, I mean, I was doing athletics club 2 times a week, going to 3 times, 4 times a week, really up in that, getting into, competitions most weekends in the summer. And then through kind of, basically, I had really bad shin splints and compartment syndrome, sort of injuries in my lower limbs. So I just couldn't do the longer distances that you needed to do for the 400 meters, which was the event I really wanted to excel at. And it just so happened, living in Bath and at the University of Bath, they had just built a skeleton and bobsleigh start track for those Salt Lake City Winter Olympics in 2002. So I remember watching those Olympics on the TV, and Alex Coomber, who was in the RAF at the time, won a bronze medal in skeleton. But even then, there was no point in my brain that I thought, oh, I'd like to try that. So it was only then a few months later that I was in the gym, doing my strength training for my athletics, and there were some people in the gym who were bobsleigh skeleton athletes. I got chatting. They were about to go down onto this start track for a training session. I was like, oh, can I come and take a look? Yeah, cool. And basically, I had a go. I was pretty quick at it. That speed wasn't necessarily my strong point to begin with, but I somehow naturally went into that sort of bent over position, that biomechanical start to just sprint. This track is sort of 80 meters on train tracks, so totally different than ice. And I sort of got into it. And I ended up joining an army ice camp, a military ice camp, for my very first time on ice. So that was October 2002. And then just thought, yeah, actually, I kind of tick enough boxes to potentially be good at this sport. Let's just give it a go for the time being. And I guess sort of the rest is history, but obviously clearly a lot went into it. But yeah, I just discovered this sport that was really quite unusual.
And I don't want to preempt what we're going to come on and talk about as we go through your book, but you kind of almost covered up the fact there throughout your narrative that you started at 18 years old, or at least you didn't really talk much about that. I mean, actually something you say in the book is that a lot of your contemporaries you were up against, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Germans they have some of the best facilities and tend to be the best in the world. And they were starting at sort of 5-6 years old, 18 years old, Amy. I mean, that's late to the table, right?
I wasn't I? Yeah, it's true. I mean, skeleton, bobsleigh, when you've got a track that you live next door to, say in Germany or America, Canada, the Swiss, I mean, they literally do it as part of like a PE lesson at school. You know, you can join that club as if I was doing my athletics. So you can do it from a very young age. They're on these tiny little sleds. They start at the very bottom of the track and they just slowly get used to it. Whereas here in Great Britain, you know, naturally you don't pull people out of school. You start naturally just a lot older. So for me, and actually, to be fair, the way that we talent ID athletes now is we pick athletes who are already super fast. So that power, that speed, the explosiveness that you need for that sprint start in the sport of skeleton, and then we teach them how to slide. Whereas arguably in other sports, other countries, sorry, they'd teach you how to slide and then sort of, can you be quick at the same time? So we kind of go for that speed and the pure power and explosiveness of the start as a sprinter, and then transform you into a skeleton athlete and teach you how to drive that sled fast. So we kind of do it a little bit backwards, but we kind of have to, because like you say, we don't have an ice track in the UK. We only have this special start track that you can practice that sprint. And luckily, living in Bath, I just lived in the right place to have all the facilities, and the National Training Centre was here in Bath, and that's how I kind of naturally fell into a sport. And I think with lots of youngsters, if you live next to a swimming pool, you'll probably get into swimming. If you live in Manchester next to the velodrome, you'll probably give track cycling a go. So I really do believe if you sort of, your facilities around you can definitely shape and mould you into certain athletes depending on just what you have available to you.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's how you start this book, Talent to Triumph. Chapter 1 is finding a sport perhaps that you love, that you can compete in. But before we get on to that, I mean, tell me a little bit about the beginnings of this book, Amy. You know, what made you start writing a book like this, and why the format that you did it in? Why not sort of a biography that so many Olympians do? Tell me a little bit about the beginnings of this book.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when I won my gold, you know, back in 2010, I always had in the back of my head, like, I have to write this down. Like, I had gone through such a process as an athlete from all the years of starting off, you know, starting off as athletics, finding that sport of skeleton, working my way through the competitions, getting better and better. I missed out on the Turin Winter Olympics in 2006, and that was a big shift and a change for me. And I just went through such a process in those solid 4 years of how do I make myself a better athlete and get my feet on that starting line in Vancouver. I've got 4 years. I have to evaluate my life now and my performance to get to that Vancouver, and I want to win a medal. So I guess this book is kind of a kind of chapter by chapter and summary of top tips, of lessons, of guides, of quotes and interviews that I've gathered. It's my story and how I did it, but also I've got and I've pulled in so many great quotes from other top performing athletes, medalists, coaches who kind of back up what I'm saying in their own words and their own experiences as well. So yeah, I never wanted to do that autobiography. You know, I never got round to it sort of 10 years ago. Well, actually coming up to 12 years ago for my medal. My medal was like 11 and a half years old. Can't believe it. And finally it's like, start of lockdown. Good idea. Lovely publisher came to me. Yes, I am going to do this. I'm finally going to do it. And I had bits and bobs all over the place in my brain and on paper, and it's just splattering it down. And I've spent, the last sort of 16 months getting it all out there. And I'm super proud. And I feel like I've got 10 great chapters and have been really blessed with so many awesome contributors from friends that I've known from summer sports, winter sports, coaching. And I mean, this book is for any aspiring athlete who have just watched the Olympics now in Tokyo, who want to make it in 4 years' time or 8 years' time, or maybe not even athletics, you know. Sorry, not even the Olympics. You just want to make a football team or get to your school sports final. Or actually, are you a businessman and can you have those lessons from sport that you cross over into business? It's a book pretty much for everyone, even though it's sort of aimed a little bit more for that kind of teenage athlete.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a real strength of it is it does speak to everybody, but it certainly seems to talk to the younger athlete. And that's where you start, as I say. You start with saying, hey, look, have a look around. You have a look at the sports that you love and that you feel that you can excel in. Have a look at your strengths and what you can utilize to help you excel within a sport. And then you move on to, in chapter 2, you dedicate a whole chapter to, I suppose, dealing with barriers, dealing with the challenges that one faces. So I'd love to know a little bit about when you reflect back with your sort of 8, 9, 10 years as a competitive skeleton racer. What were the barriers that you faced, and how do you, when you reflect back, how do you feel you dealt with them, and how did you deal with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's seeing barriers not as a kind of a negative thing, but as a, well, blatantly in our sport, we do not have an ice track. So that is a giant barrier right in front of your eyes. And I think this last year of COVID, all these Tokyo athletes, they've managed to train without potentially going into a gym, without being able to fight, judo, boxing against another human being. So they're huge barriers. So is it like your facilities and equipment around you? And how do you get around that? Is it that actually I don't have the best equipment and I know there's better stuff out there? Yes, that's true. But can you perfect your skill on equipment that isn't as good? So one day when you do get a better bike or a faster bike and all these little tiny millimeters of more aerodynamics, that really will excel your performance. And that's sort of focusing on what you do have, not on what you don't. The equipment, the facilities, money maybe. Can you afford all the best things? And I think it's showing that, hang on, in Great Britain we can still win medals, and we have done in the last 4 Winter Olympics, and we don't actually have that most blatant thing in front of our eyes. So how do we think outside the box? How do we perfect our performance in all these other areas when maybe the biggest barrier of all is right there in front of you? And to show you that it won't stop you performing or achieving. You just have to think a little bit differently.
In many respects, the term control the controllables has become a cliche now in sports psychology, but it's a cliche because it's so true. And that's what I'm hearing from you there, Amy, is that the lack of facilities that you had was out of your control, but therefore it forced you to think outside of the box. And as I sit here now listening to you, I just wonder if those early days of adversity from a lack of facilities perspective actually helps you maybe become a little bit more resilient within your sport. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I think totally. I mean, like you say, the kind of control the controllables is definitely in this book. That's a mantra that has just become more and more popular, but so true. I mean, I live my life in that mantra to this day. Like, I say it to myself when my 2-year-old is screaming all night, like, control the controllables. I can't control his screaming, but I'll do the best I can. So yeah, I think it's definitely true. And like when I started off in the sport of skeleton, so back in 2002, I was on a man's sled, which was bigger and heavier than it should have been. I therefore had moments in competitions where I remember going to the welders in Calgary, trying to make the sled lighter because it was too heavy for me and I would be disqualified. So how can we make this sled lighter? And it was awful when you think of it, like drilling holes in different places that weren't important just to like make the weight. That's extreme. But
was that actually in competition, Amy? Was that in competition?
Yeah.
You're joking.
Yeah, I remember going with my old, coach, and we were like, we have to make this sled heavier because we just didn't have women's sleds back then, and we were on all these really old equipment. But you know what? We did what we could to be legal in a race. But again, it was like, okay, I don't have the fastest equipment. I certainly don't. We don't have the best runners. So that's like the tires on your car. But hang on, that doesn't matter. We can still perfect our skill. Can I become the best aerodynamic athlete? Can I get the perfect body position? And, even the very final thought in my head at the Olympics was, have the best body position. Going back to those real basic qualities on the sled and as a performer, that's not all the fluffy stuff of eating the most organic food every single day. It's like, actually, can I still do really, really well and concentrate on the things that are needed?
The granular detail, the 1%. Now, in the next chapter, you've alluded already to the fact that you didn't go to the Olympic Games in Turin in 2006. I'd be right in thinking that, wouldn't I?
Yes. Yeah.
And so that was a setback. But you also, in the book, you talk about it might be your first big crash, but you had a big injury. Injury is such a massive part of sport, and dealing with that. When you reflect back and you were injured, I'm guessing that you had to try to turn a lot of sort of negatives into positives. Now, you sound like quite a positive person naturally, but did you find that challenging?
Yeah, injuries are kind of inevitable most of the time for most athletes. And so, the kind of third chapter is all about managing those setbacks, managing injury, managing fear, things that do and will go wrong. And I think it's being realistic as an athlete. It's not a negative thing to say, actually, realistically, in my career as an athlete, I most likely will get injured. I will have a crash in whatever your sport, or you will pull a muscle, or things aren't going to go your way. You might not meet that criteria or time, and you might not make that team when you want to make the team. That first major crash when I was first starting on a track called Altenburg in East Germany. We call it Alten Smash because it was just renowned for people crashing. It was horrific. I always remember very vividly that first crash and just being like spat out of this corner and twisting, and your sled disappears. And, that kind of damaged my first disc in my back, basically. And so that kind of made me straight away have a huge respect for my sport and for my for the track, which I kind of made it into this little, okay, I have to respect my track. I have to respect the sport. I have to be at one with my sled, be at one with my equipment. I have to really learn what I'm doing. I have to really focus. I have to really perfect my mental imagery and going down the track as many times as I can in my head and watching videos. And it made you realize, hang on a minute, okay, in our sport, we go down 2 times a day. You have to perfect your skills and those lines and the steering after 2 runs. So we only have, 6 runs before a race. And that's maybe against, a German who's had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of runs. So we have to learn how to perfect very quickly, get over fear fast, manage those, we all know about the little chimp on your shoulder from another famous psychologist. So how can you have those negative thoughts in your head and switch it to positive self-talk, even when you don't fancy it or you don't believe yourself? Like, come on. And how can you sort of almost look at all of those areas and improve? There's a great quote that I've got from Maria Costello. So she's TT racer. She's first woman to ever stand on the podium in the TT. So I got involved commentating on the TT over the last few years. And just seeing their sport, being at one on a bike, learning as much as they can, the giant track or road that is around the Isle of Man. And she sort of talks about, her dangers, the fear and that mental and physical side of her event, and how she sort of gets around it. And, she kind of says how she's not sort of blind to that danger. She's very aware of it. But again, how you can flick that around in your head. So kind of the whole book is just full of me finding out, okay, right, could you do a quote on this for me? And how do you deal with it? How did I deal with it? And how do we share that to the person reading this book?
Absolutely, and it was probably remiss of me at the beginning not to reinforce what you said earlier, which is that just some wonderful stories, anecdotes, techniques, tips from some of the best sports people around today. So that's littered throughout the book, and that really, even more brings the book alive alongside your narrative. I'm going to be a right psychologist here, Amy, and I'm trained to sort of listen into the clues. And you mentioned there that after that first crash, or injury that you had, what it sounded to me like is perhaps that prior to that. This is probably going to be a broad brush statement here, but prior to that, perhaps you just went and you did the skeleton. And then it feels like after that, you took an even more granular approach. You said you had to respect the track. You had to respect everything more. So it almost, tell me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like you kind of then went, okay, I need to really be more granular here. I need to be really more analytical. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, probably. And I probably didn't realize it at the time. I think that's the thing, I was still, 18, 19, very fresh to the sport, new to the sport. You knew it was dangerous, of course, and you're watching these crashes and bobsleighs crashing and all these different things happening. But yeah, I think probably with anyone, whether you're a track or road cyclist or, whatever sport, a judo player or whatever you might be, a diver, and you whack your head on the end of the diving board, until you have your first proper major crash and you're like, whoa, and you either run away from the sport and give up and quit, which hopefully you never do, or you're like, okay, I never want to do that again. Obviously you still do, but to a lesser amount, and you suddenly learn, okay, well, if I am going to crash, what does it feel like before I crash? What can I do just before it happens? Or how do I stop it from happening? Or yes, how can I learn about this one corner better and understand it better? So yeah, I think it kind of put that performance into my own hands of, right, okay, I want to be good at this sport. I know I can be good at this sport. So what can I do? And one of the kind of tools in this chapter, so throughout the chapters, I kind of almost do work tools so that you can scribble into the book yourself. Kind of, this is something I've done. Now here's a blank page that you can do it yourself. And one of that is that turning that negative into a positive. So, you know what? I'm really scared of this corner 4. I'm super scared of. I don't want to crash out of it again. Okay, well, the positive thing is, well, you spent an hour researching it the night before, you've watched and studied it, be confident you're not going to crash again. So almost, how do you turn one sentence that you're saying in your head, no, I now need to physically write this down on a piece of paper, into a positive one to tell myself, just because you crashed yesterday, it doesn't mean you're going to crash today, and just really flicking things around. So there's kind of really practical tools and sort of a workbook almost that you can be doing throughout each chapter.
Yeah, it's giving you the opportunity to learn how to reframe. And it was interesting earlier, you talked about it's not negative to necessarily consider the bad things that may happen. And again, in psychology, we'd talk about if-then scenarios. If this happens, then I will do this. I suppose my last question here is, when you reflect back, did you experience any inhibition at all when you returned to the track after that injury? Or were you straight back out and as confident as ever flying down the course?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I was not the most confident athlete. Crikey, no. And one of the other guys on the team thought I was going to quit there and then. Like, he was shocked I ever even got back on a sled. No, I no doubt, I cried a lot. You're in pain, but you have to get back on. I think it's just that thing, isn't it? Like, get back on that horse. You fall off, you get back on. And I think you just have to tell yourself, like, if I don't get back on the next day, I probably will stop and never do it ever again, because that fear will overtake me. So, my whole career, I was never the most confident athlete. I was always more reserved, more shy, didn't have confidence in myself. So I had to kind of find ways of bringing that out of myself as the years went on. And obviously, as you get a bit older as well, you grow in confidence and your own ability. But for me, it wasn't something that came naturally. I really had to work at it and find my own way of developing those skills and seeing it as a skill. That's the thing, isn't it? The whole of psychology, it's a skill. You have to work at it really hard. It's like lifting weights in the gym. You have to work at your mind and that mindset as well.
It's always good to hear a gold medal winner talking about psychology as a competence or a skill, and that you've got to work on it. It's so important, isn't it? And actually, it's interesting. Littered throughout your book, you do refer to your personality and perhaps being a little bit more, whether it's on the introverted side or the shy side, and that it sounds to me like over the years it's something that you began to notice more and then learn how to flex away from and perhaps assert yourself a little bit more when you needed to. That seems to be a skill or a competence that you learned. You kind of just alluded to it, but it's something you learnt over time, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my coach always used to call me training champion. Oh, come on, training champion. Because I always broke these track records in training times and was always the fastest one in training. And then it would come to race day and I was always second, I was always third, I was always fourth, and it was why can't I do it on race day? And that was a big turning point over the years. And in the build up towards the Olympics over those few years before, it was I know I am physically fast enough and good enough to beat every girl on every track because I've done it in training. I have the proof on the fact sheets, of those time sheets that come out. I can see that I've beaten every girl on every track at different times. So why don't I do it on race day? And I mean, that was, very slowly over the years, how do I do it? And it pretty much did come down to either the confidence. Do I have the confidence? Because I got into that little rut of, I've never done it on race day. But I always do it. And maybe, in hindsight, was it a bad thing that the coach used to name me training champion, kind of almost made it even more that when I'm not going to do it on race day. But it made me more determined of, why is it? Why do I not perform on race day when it matters? And I think that was the thing. I was so, it goes through into the book, but it was a lot more relaxed in training. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the training. People were talking. I sat with my German friends and the Aussie girls. And yes, we concentrated when we were out there and it was your turn to push your sled. We were 100% on it. You have to be. But the other times we chatted and we had fun and we loved it. And then on race day, that was stripped away. It was deadly silent. It was serious. It was nothingness. And that extra sort of tension in your body that goes through our sled and down onto the track, we kind of, after a very long time and many years, realized, well, hang on, I don't enjoy race day and all of that. And I have to enjoy my sport. Otherwise, I won't perform, bottom line. So that's quite a big thing. And as you go through the book as well, is okay, how do you create this happy bubble that potentially you have in training, and that's why you perform so well, and somehow on race day, what is different about that race day environment that somehow just makes those 1% shifts within your mind, your body, how you're feeling, that kind of sense around you that maybe means that you don't perform as well. And I think that's been a really interesting thing with Tokyo and the different athletes, and some have outperformed because there hasn't been the crowd and actually it hasn't felt like a competition or hasn't felt like the Olympics. And then other athletes that maybe haven't done as well because they need the crowds and they need that energy and that buzz. One of my mates is quoted in this. She's a modern pentathlete, Katie Livingston. She did Beijing Olympics, and she said that she had to have the crowd before the swimming in modern pentathlon. She would poke her head out of the changing rooms to get herself more nervous, to look at the crowd and hear it, because she needed that extra buzz and energy for herself to be able to go out and do that swim. Whereas someone like me, I'm like the total opposite. I have to block it all out and calm myself to go and perform. And I think, that takes a while to realize which one of those people you are.
Well, there's some rich stuff there, Amy, and I was sort of sitting here wondering which direction I want to take it next. But
sorry, I'm blabbering.
No, it's brilliant. No, it's absolutely it's absolutely perfect, and this is the exact kind of conversation I wanted to have. And I think just bringing it back to the book, I think what we're about to talk about will cross a number of chapters. In chapter 4, you talk about teamwork. In 5, goals. 6, mindset. 7, training and preparation. But I do want to, as I say, I think what we're about to talk about potentially encompasses all of this, but how did you get that mindset in the end? I mean, we really are going into traditional sports psychology realms here. You're in practice runs, you were number one, you were bang on the money. Come competition, you weren't quite there, and you said because you weren't enjoying it, potentially you were taking it too seriously, or giving into the stress that engulfed you, the anxiety that engulfed you, kind of potentially preempting what you're about to say. But how did that shift for you? What things did you do, your team, to be able to shift that competitive mindset?
Yeah, I think it was just a very slow process. I feel like it wasn't suddenly waking up one day and saying, like, we have to do X, Y, Z. For me, it definitely started off with that confidence. I need more confidence as an athlete. I need to stop focusing on other people. So that was something that, so in the year before the Olympics, we did have access to a psychologist. And for me, I decided to try and see her as much as I could, to try and figure out, okay, we don't know the answer, so what is it? Why can't I ever win at a race day? We kind of very slowly homed in on a few different things. And I guess, one of them was that confidence. So how am I going to get more confident? One of them I realised, and probably the biggest reason why I missed out on the Turin Olympics, because I spent a lot of time focusing on the other girls, the other performers. What are they doing? Why are they so fast? What warm-up are they doing? What are they doing that I'm not? And which means that they're beating me in a race. And it sounds very simple, but when that starts to consume your thoughts and you're thinking more about why have they managed to do that? Why can they do that better than me? You just sort of don't focus on yourself. And again, it just takes away all that confidence. So they're kind of quite matched together. And that was one thing, right? In every sport, you need to watch your competitors. And especially in our sport, we video every corner on the track. We can only go down, like I said, 2 times a day. So you only home in on a few corners. You can't perfect the whole track. We don't have our own, so we just have to sort of pick the big corners that we really have to get better at. So the coaches, we film, we do spend hours sat on the side of a freezing cold -5 track, watching the other competitors, making notes. How did they go in the corner? How did they come out the corner? I would rock up a few hours before my turn, hot water bottle stuffed down my back to keep me warm, hot flask of tea. You did what you had to do, staying around after sessions to watch the session that was going on after you, to watch, okay, I'm having problems on corner 9, so I just need to watch 50 people go through and see what they're doing, or get the timings right in my head. Okay, I'm going to watch, and then I'm going to shut my eyes and I'm going to go through it in my head. So that was one thing, but that balance of, yes, watching other athletes and focusing in, but not obsessively. Have confidence in what you're doing, and then sort of coming down to well, hang on a minute, how else do I get confidence? I split my life into a kind of pie chart and sort of wrote down all the things that I could perfect. So this is, I can't remember what chapter this is in, actually.
I think it's 7. I think it's chapter 7.
Yeah, it might be. Or in goal setting, or one of them. But I would write down, every area of my life. So sporting life, that could be my technical side, the equipment, my nutrition, my lifestyle, my sleep quality, the lifting in the gym, my psychology, whichever area, the stress levels, your work, your life, your balance. And then, you'd rate that as a scale of 1 to 10, and then work out, well, okay, I'm going to write goals for every single one of them. And And knowing that I had worked as hard as I could in every single area of those pie charts, again, just gave me the confidence that coming onto start line on race day, I have done everything physically possible in every single areas of those life, every day, every week, every month, every year. And it came down to me having this little tick box, a laminated piece of card, three boxes, three ticks. And that was my little visual to be like, Amy, you have done everything physically possible every day of your life. Hand on your heart, you are given 100% in every single area. Take confidence that whatever this result, that's going to be your best performance. And so I just had to have this little mind shift of, yes, you want to win, but who said you had to win? Yes, you put down fast times in training, but it was this kind of shift of, okay, you stand on that start line and what's going to happen is going to happen because you're going to give 100% in all those areas. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it kind of just all came back to that. Be confident in you as an athlete that you have done the very best with your performance. And in return, then sort of what will happen will happen. And when you win that race, you will win the race that you're meant to win. If that makes sense.
It makes 100% sense, in several ways. You're placing your attention on yourself rather than others, therefore potentially turning down the volume of anxiety, because you overly focus on others, then that can be a source of anxiety. I really think it was chapter 5, your goals section. So, that's followed by chapter 6, mindset, where you talk a lot about thinking logically rather than emotionally. That classic notion of managing emotions, thinking rationally. And it strikes me that within your preparation, that tick box exercise, okay, what have I done? Have I done that? Yes, I've done that. Perhaps helped you to think logically about the situation more rather than emotionally. And then my final thought, then, there won't be a question here, it'd be great to get your comment, is you said something really interesting there along the lines of, I don't have to win. I'd like to win. I can't control everything. All I can do is tick these boxes and then go out there and give it my very best effort. And in many respects, I mean, these are classic sort of narratives that we as sports psychologists have tried to help athletes have. I think a lot of athletes think they have to get embroiled within the I have to. But actually, again, that's anxiety inducing rather than I'd like to do this. Okay, how am I going to do this? Let's tick these things. That's all I can do. And actually, paradoxically, that's a very powerful position to be in.
Yeah, and I think, it took me many years to learn that. And it sounds really simple now. And obviously, yes, great, you put it into these books and chapters, but it took a really long time. And we only really had a psychologist right towards the end. And this was me kind of writing my own things down in a book. And I encourage any young athlete to have a notebook, have it with you all the time, and write your thoughts and feelings. And I mean, I found out some of my old track books, and at the top of it sometimes, so I'd always put the time of day, the ice temperature, the air temperature, the humidity, all these sort of stats that are really important, what runners I chose on my sled. So like I said, the kind of tires on your car, the grip, how I was feeling, was I tired, was I happy, and I read through and flicked through some pages, and I'd written, Amy, you hate this track, you're always scared of it, you feel sick, but don't worry, you're always great, you're always fast. And it's something that I wrote back all those years ago just on the top of my page. And it means that when you go back to that track a year later, you grab those same old track notes that you're flicking through because you're reading what you did. Oh, yeah, you're right. I do hate this track. And yes, I know I'm going to be the most nervous person, but you're right. I am always good at this track. And just because it means that you don't like it, or you might not like a particular athletics track because it's, I don't know, really exposed or it's too noisy, it doesn't mean you're not going to perform well. And that's a massive thing. And that's that kind of, yeah, like you said, that logical thinking brain, those thoughts and words, to the emotional thinking. And how can you really, again, write all this down to affect your performance and not let it ruin your performance, and just be very aware, that self-awareness of how you're thinking, you're feeling, you're behaving. Like, are you slouched and rounded and your face is miserable and you're, physically looking in a really bad place? Or, how does that affect then your performance? So yeah, write things down and become really aware of it. And good or bad, just splat it on a notebook and take that around with you.
It's really interesting you say that. I don't know if you saw the Australian high jumper who won the silver a few weeks ago at the Tokyo Olympics, and she was Nicola McDermott, and she was writing down in her journal between jumps. I mean, literally in the event, to be able to, I would imagine there's a number of reasons, but to be able to rationalise what's going on. So you probably can't do that halfway down the skeleton course. But
no, but we have like a bag at the bottom where we put our warm clothes on, and you have your notebook in there. So even at the Olympics, that would be me writing down little things. Okay, I've just got to do this one extra little thing, or there's tiny little perfections, or okay, really knee drive forward in that push. All those little cues. Yes, you're still writing them down, even on that most important day.
Really interesting. Now, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about that race in 2010. Your chapter 10, success and peak performance. Again, I'm going to come back to me being a complete geek around high performance, and I love in-performance narratives. I love it when athletes, no matter the sport, sort of break it down. And so I loved all of your chapters, but chapter 10 I enjoyed so much because I just think it's fascinating to either listen to or read what somebody was thinking and how they were feeling during big performances. Now, this was your ultimate performance, the Olympic Games, your gold medal run. I won't put you on the spot and get you to give us a narrative of the whole race. But I mean, one question I do have for you around this, again, being a geeky psychologist here, is did you have attentional cues, little thoughts that you'd have to have on the way down in order to pay attention? There's got to be, it's surely quite a technical sport, and surely you've got to have attentional cues as the course unfolds.
Yeah, so our sport, is very, very technical, whether that's just the equipment or, like you said, you've got anywhere between 14 and 19 corners in front of you that you're going down at 80, 90 miles per hour. Your chin is a centimetre to an inch off the floor. So you do clearly, you have to know that track inside out. Most of the time you can't see because your head is 4 to 5 G's of pressure, like it is squashed onto that ice. So the helmet is like, that's the noise that it will make. So yes, you have to be very aware of your peripheral vision, the senses, the feelings. And there are certain moments that you might pop up from a corner, your head looks, and you need to know instantly where you are.
Okay. Do you need to know what turn you're in? You're on? Do you need to know
100%. Yeah. So the whole time, I mean, it sounds weird, but I still sort of count my way down. So you're at the top of the track. So if I do sort of semi-take you through the race, one of my coaches is holding the sled. So he always did that in every competition. I was in all of my warm-up clothes. I had another coach that was just watching sort of as a spectator, so to speak, on the side. And I had my helmet on. And the last thing I did was just smile to myself in my helmet, because it came down to that. I have to enjoy this. Come on, Amy. Let's just say this is the last run of the Olympics. There's 4 runs at an Olympic race over 2 days. 4 runs count. I was the last one to go down because the very fastest person goes off last. It goes off in reverse order. So the changing rooms have got emptier and emptier. And I didn't know who else was in the leaderboard box. I didn't know who was first, second, third, because my tactic at these Olympics, and I'd done it throughout the races prior, was to not listen to anyone's times. I didn't want to know who had got down fast or who had crashed or what had gone wrong, or oh my goodness, the Aussie girl's overtaken the Canadian, who's overtaken the American. So I didn't know what had happened, because to me that could not affect my performance. That could not affect how I performed on my sled.
Yep.
So I was just at the top, knowing I was in gold medal position. This was my last run. I have to go down. So my very first things are, you see a traffic light system. You go when you want to go. There's no kind of starting gun. Okay. It's a clear green light. The track is clear. You have 30 seconds to get yourself over this where the timing gate beeps. So it's, putting that, whipping my clothes off as fast as I can to keep my heat in my body.
Yep.
It's getting your feet into position. It's being very aware that there's a camera shoved on that back foot as my foot is shaking with nerves. Like, that camera is going out to the whole world. Oh, no, focus. Like, what am I going to do? Get into that position, drive my knees forward. My little cue was eat the ground. So I drove and did my big, huge strides, really powerful, sprinting away. And then it was get into that perfect body position. Day one on a skeleton sled, you will be taught to get into that perfect body position. Yes, we've done loads of wind tunnel work, but bottom line, head down, shoulders down, feet together, be as aerodynamic as possible. And before you know it, that first corner is straight at you. And so thereon, you are just thinking about your steers, doing your steers, looking into the next corner, working your way down. Yes, being very aware of cowbells and noise and cheering and screams as you come in and out of different corners. So you were aware of it, but you had to shut it out. You had to instantly be counting. So my main thing was that I continue to always count corner 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because as I counted, I automatically knew the steers that I would do through my body. And the counting kept me focused on where I was. Because it is very easy to get lost. You're going so fast, and some of the corners come at such a quick speed, and then there might be a bit of a straight, which was actually not really a straight because it was corner 8 and 9. And then by the time you're near the bottom, and there's 143 kilometers per hour, you are fast. You really don't have time to think. You do have moments when you can lose concentration, but at that speed, you can't afford to lose concentration. You have to be on it at all times. And then, I didn't know where I'd come. I came up the finish line, which was a really steep hill, which you can't quite see on TV. And I remembered I didn't see a number 1 because my final run was not the fastest run, but it's the accumulation of all your 4 runs. So you have to be consistently the fastest person. So I knew that run wasn't the fastest, but I didn't know where I'd come. Had I dropped down to second like I always normally do? Did I? So as soon as I did finish, the coach that was at the bottom, I hugged him. And obviously the crowd was going wild and crazy, but they could have been cheering for the Germans who were in second and third, or were they cheering for me? I didn't know. So I hugged my coach, Andy Schmidt, and I whispered to him, where did I come? Where did I come? And he's the one who whispered, you're Olympic champion. So then you're like, if you see on a video, I start patting his back, and that's the moment
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah. I start patting his back, and then I'm like, okay, now what do I do? I still had the helmet on my head, and someone threw me a Union Jack flag, and I'm like, why didn't I just take my time and just, get it out nicely? And why didn't I take my helmet off and just sort of fluff my hair out or whatever? Like, all these things that you think, I could have done that a lot better. But, in the moment, I was still this pretty shy girl, like, I've won a race and now everyone's looking at me, and it's the Olympics. And finally, like, the 4 years of obsessive hard work from missing out at Turin, it all came together when I knew I could do it. I knew I could win that race. So all of a sudden you're like, everyone's looking at me. What do I do now? I've not practiced this kind of cheering, hands in the air, because I wouldn't allow myself to. Because for me, you know very well, you practice all those, you don't focus in on that end result. You focus in on all those performance. It's always about the performance and doing those practical little things right. And if I do all of them right, then that end goal and the win will happen naturally. So So yeah, it's quite funny when I look back at it. I'm like, oh, you could have done that better, like. But who cares?
You were
It's
kind of
gone
still
wide.
you were still in process mode. I think you say in the book
Yeah.
is that you just didn't go into alcohol. Okay, it's happened now. I've won. You're still in process.
Yeah.
You mentioned, the culmination of 4 years hard work, 4 years process. Using that word again at the end of the book, you talk about. I can't remember if you refer to it as a superpower or a super skill, but actually you name this superpower. And I suppose in many respects people might read it and go, oh really? Is that seems kind of uncool? And it's self-awareness, that of all the skills that you had, you think it was self-awareness that was the one that potentially got you to where you got to that gold medal. Fascinated about. I'm not surprised. I'm a sports psychologist, though. Tell us a bit about that. To finish off here, self-awareness. That how comes that was the superpower?
Yeah, I guess it's yeah, I mean, it was a sort of tough one to sort of think, okay, what is it? And, trying to come up with that kind of one word, or, that kind of what is your superpower? And everyone always, it's a kind of good media question that everyone always asks you. And I guess it's just sort of boiling down that, from that day one of that first crash and that awareness of your body and you crashing and, okay, I could quit or not quit. As those stepping stones go along and, okay, I need to get on with my teammates because I'm with them for 24 hours a day, or I need to understand my coach better and how he's going to coach me because I need to perform better. And, our coaches were Austrian and English wasn't their first language. And can you understand each other better? To that kind of, training and preparation and the awareness that every day, every decision you make as a person and as an athlete has an effect on your performance. So is that you go out partying until 10, 11 o'clock at night? Or do you choose to go to bed at 9:30, turn the light off at 10? That's all self-awareness. That's all realizing yourself what you need to do to perform as an athlete. No one else performs for you. And I think it was just kind of all of the little things from every chapter, whether that is your strengths and your weaknesses and turning positives to negatives, or simply like, how do I pack my bag the night before race day, not forgetting anything. That's all awareness of what you are doing and your choices that you make. And, there's that, whatever that quote, and you probably know who said it, and I don't even know the quote properly, but about making your boat go faster. What's that quote that everyone always goes on about?
Does it make it poses a question?
Does it make the boat go faster? Yeah. And
yeah.
I guess for me, it was like, who makes this sled go faster? It's only me. I'm the only one who powers it, who sprints with it, who's made my body the fastest it can, who's lifted those weights in the gym every single day, who rocked up an hour early to do extra stretching and stabilization and mobility so that I wouldn't get injured. All those tiny little choices every single day. That's you. And I think for me, the blinkers went on after Turin Olympics that I missed out. Blinkers, that kind of horse in a cart with those blinkers over their eyes. You can't look left or right. The answer was, is this going to help me every day? Yes or no? And if it was a no, I would not do it, because that is not going to help me go to an Olympics and win a medal. And it was as simple as that. And I guess maybe that's that superpower. Can you be aware of yourself and your decisions every single day that ultimately will affect your performance in the long run? And I guess, this whole book is all about, that talent to triumph and how you can turn, that high performance. How do you turn your performance into high performance? And what's the difference between just dribbling along every single day, or actually you just up it 1% in all those little areas on your pie chart and you can perform 1% better. And in an Olympic race, that could be 100th of a second, that could be first place or third place or 10th place. You see the tiny, tiny margins. So it's sort of, I guess, teaching young athletes that these are the things you need to start doing regularly and on a daily basis to be good at your sport and to really excel at your sport, and give your own body the chance to do what it can do. And what you can achieve. Yeah, I guess that sort of sums it all up.
Yeah, and I think as well, it doesn't surprise me that at the end of the book you talked about a superpower being self-awareness, because obviously you've also spoken today to the personality piece and building confidence as well. And I suppose if you don't build any awareness around that, you won't actually flex or grow as a person and as an athlete. And I think the final thought for me there, which I suppose leads on to my final question, is you've actually referred to enjoyment. You refer to it a lot in the book, and you've referred to it a lot today. So there seems to be that sort of juxtaposition between high performance and, got to do the things, got to do those 1% that you talk about a lot, which is absolutely true. But also, we've also got to, it's probably important to enjoy the process and enjoy performance, which seems to be something that you did that helped you to be able to perform. And I suppose it's really, I'm just interested to get a comment from you. Tokyo Olympics, as we've already mentioned a few times, has just finished. And it almost feels like there's starting to be a bit of a shift of narrative around athletes' well-being, mental health, and the importance of that. Obviously, the challenges and the plight of Simone Biles. You will, I'm sure, have watched a lot of Tokyo Olympics. I don't know if you felt that the same was coming through, that, top level athletes, Olympians, yes, they've got to search for those 1%. Yes, they've got to dedicate their lives, but they also need to look after their well-being and mental health. They need to enjoy their sport as well. So, again, no question, but did you have any thoughts to that to finish us off?
Yeah, I think there definitely has been a big shift and change, and you could sense it the most. And yeah, I watched pretty much 24 hours a day of the Olympics. So yeah, I was quite interested in that. And I know there was quite a few tweets out there saying, what are you on about? Why do they need to enjoy it? They're there to do a job. I can't remember who said that. But anyway, I did read sort of the flip side of people not understanding that, these athletes do need to enjoy it. Like,
yeah,
and I sort of say to sort of business people, like, wow, if you go into your job hating it every day, and I think this COVID has made people realize, and a lot of people have shifted jobs, shifted their way of life, because you realize you need to enjoy life. So whether that is an athlete at the Olympics or, you rocking up having just hating your job every day, well, do something about it. And I think, my whole thing came down to those Olympic Games of, I have to enjoy it. I have to create my own bubble at the Olympic Games, have the people around me that I need to have, do the things that I needed to do to remember why I was doing this sport in the first place. And, ultimately we're sliding like a penguin on a sled going down an ice track. Like, come on, guys. But that's the point. It can feel so overwhelming and consuming, and the pressure for us to bring home a medal, for example, for the sport, because we knew someone had to bring home a medal for the sport to continue. We needed a medal, otherwise there would be no more skeleton, and that medal that came home enabled there to be the future skeleton athletes that have gone on to win more and more medals. So there was so much pressure on you to perform. For us in Vancouver, they'd made the fastest track that had ever been made. There was a luge athlete that died a few days before, sadly and horrifically, in a freak accident. But it kind of proved, like, this is a dangerous sport. This track is fast. Like, you have to be on it. And then because of all of that, equally so, you have to enjoy what you're doing. And, learning from the TT racers, they all enjoy their life and their job and their work, even though they know every time they go out on that bike, they are life and death. They are on that edge, but they would not be doing other thing. That is their life. That is everything they do. And the whole family realizes this is who they are. They would not have it any other way. So I think it comes back to, Simone Biles. I think hats off to her. She knew, and obviously for her it was the danger and the, can't remember what the condition's called, but she gets lost and she doesn't know where she is.
Twisties.
Yeah, and that could so happen in our sport as well. And to be brave and put your hands up to say, this isn't right, I need to stop. And again, that's her own confidence to do that, her own self-awareness to do that, her own bravery to do that. And I think actually at the very start, one of the first chapters in Selecting Your Sport, I've got a great quote from Brian Ashton, ex-former head coach of England rugby, when he went off and helped win that World Cup. And one of his things, I chatted to him, he goes back to that kind of fun play. You have to enjoy yourself, and actually why people, that kind of street play, go back to the day that you were the kid knocking around a football in the park or on the street corner. You had that freedom and the flexibility and that fun and that natural rivalry, and you had those skills, and that's where you learn all those skills. And you did that sport because you loved getting a football and kicking around with your mates at the end of the day. And he summarizes really nicely of that kind of, like, you've got to hold on to that. That's why you did the sport in the first place. And even though you may be in the biggest competition of your life, remember why you started it in the first place. And if you do that and you take a nice big deep breath, you relax your shoulders, then your performance will come.
Ironically, it can be a better state, competitive state to be in than that tight, intense and anxious one. So it's a fascinating landscape. Amy, that was awesome. Thank you so much. And listen, how can people, I'm not 100% sure if the book is out yet. When does it come out, and how can people get hold of it? And how can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me. So yes, it is out on the 8th of October. So you can go into a Waterstones bookshop or whichever other bookshop you should wish, and it is out. It's pre-order now, so you can pre-order it straight away. You can go straight on to my, go onto Instagram. I mean, you can go on Amazon, although I think they're being a bit silly at the moment. It says it's not available, but you should be able to pre-order, and you can go on to a bookshop. So if you go straight onto my Instagram, which is Amy Williams MBE, it's right there in my link. So that link in my bio, and it will send straight you through, and you can pre-order. And yeah, I'm super excited to have it out there, and just to share all these important things and help that next generation.
Brilliant. How can people follow you on Twitter? You've got Twitter, you've got a handle?
Twitter, I always forget what I am. I think I'm just Amy Williams. Just type in Amy Williams, and I'm sure my face will pop up. Yeah. Yeah, my face will be there. Same thing.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. That was a really, really, really interesting hour. Thank you, Amy.
Pleasure.
Well, everybody, I really enjoyed that podcast, and I'd love to hear what you, the listener, think. So please do get in touch via Twitter or Facebook or through my website, danabrahams.com, to tell me what you think of the Sports Psych Show. And if you do have any suggestions, I'd be delighted to hear them. I'm already looking forward to next week's episode. Bye for now.